The Arizona Cardinals need to sign another veteran wide receiver. Why? One specific reason. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here, still on location, visiting family. Excuse the background. We'll have a different setup, in about a week when I get back home. But yeah, everydayers, everybody else, thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. So there's a couple things I want to discuss today. Final segment, Drew Petzing spoke yesterday and had a couple interesting things to say. Kind of ho-hum, kind of just things we already knew, but the solidifying of it, it's just, it's of note as to keep, the ball bouncing down the same path that we thought before he spoke yesterday. Zaven Collins, not extended beyond his fifth year. The fifth-year option was not picked up, I should say. What does that signify? I'll discuss that in the second segment. That'll be a fun one. And then, listen, I've been, since the draft, thinking about where the Cardinals need to add more talent. And they need to add more talent still in a lot of places, namely edge rusher, probably veteran corner view. I went through my top favorite free agents in yesterday's show, if you want to check that out, again, on YouTube or free wherever you get your podcast. But there's a position that I alluded to yesterday towards the end of the show, and I didn't pay it off. I didn't pay the lead. I didn't pay the tease off. So I'm going to do the first segment here today. The reason why the Arizona Cardinals need to bring in a veteran wide receiver on top of what they already have in the wide receiver room is they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. Well, doesn't that mean that they don't need to because he's going to be good and they've got the guys from last year and they've got Trey McBride? You'd think that makes, on paper, that makes rational sense. And let me tell you why it's not. And it's not irrational. It's just not setting the Arizona Cardinals up for success as much as if they were to add a Tyler Boyd or somebody like that. Doesn't have to be somebody great. Zay Jones got released by the Jaguars yesterday. That was a name I was like, you know what? You need a guy who's actually produced as a wide receiver too. Something like that. Tyler Boyd is one of the more unsung guys in the NFL. Fantasy football players, I call him the Harry Douglas of now. Harry Douglas played for the Falcons. Roddy White and Julio Jones were there too. Whenever one of them got hurt or both got hurt, he was put into that wide receiver one role and produced for the short period of time he was needed. Same thing with Tyler Boyd. Whenever a wide receiver has gotten hurt in Cincinnati, since he's been there, he's been put into action and he's been a wide receiver two fringe, wide receiver one numbers-wise. Very dependable. Very level-headed. Very non-ego driven. Somebody like that. And the reason why, because they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., they should bring in another wide receiver is because that needs to be one of the top positions of strength for the Cardinals starting in 2024. Well, isn't it already? Let's break this down a little bit. And I'll include Trey McBride also. So Trey McBride probably, he's a top 10 tight end right now. We don't know what Sam Laporta is going to be his second year. Michael Mayer's second year, even though he was kind of behind the pack. Luke Musgrave, who was injured for a large portion of the season. Like, young tight ends are a thing now. That is necessary to win. And Trey McBride showed he's going to be one of those guys. If not top 5, definitely top 10 already. So, when you look at him, plus the wide receiver room, Marvin Harrison Jr., okay, he's going to be a rookie. Michael Wilson played less than half the season last year, missed a bunch of games. Greg Dortch has never had a role where he actually had expectations to produce, and I don't know if he will this year either. I don't know if that's going to be his role. And then they have Zach Pascal and Chris Moore. That doesn't scream world beater to me. That doesn't scream, oh, this wide receiver room is an absolute strength for this team. They've got two great players. Marvin Harrison Jr. will be, most likely. Trey McBride already is. We don't know about Michael Wilson yet. We don't know about Greg Dortch yet. We know what they've done, but we don't know in this offense when there's actual expectations with a healthy Kyler Murray. I don't think it's enough. Well, and you could say, sure, well, they're going to run the ball. They're going to run play action. They're going to feature Trey McBride. They're going to feature the rookie tight end they drafted. I understand that this is still going to be a run-first team. And this offense needs to be overpoweringly good. On paper, it looks nice. It's a nice average to above average offense right now. The projection is far higher. But right now, what we know is James Conner's very good. Trey McBride's very good. Kyler Murray's healthy. The offensive line is much improved. That's what we know. The future pacing goals or the future pacing ideas are Michael Wilson will expound upon his rookie year, hopefully play more games. Greg Dortch will get more opportunity and be able to seize those opportunities in, by way of the numbers in the stat sheet. And Marvin Harrison Jr. will be able to come in and have a huge impact as a rookie. Those are leaps. Those are 0-1 jumps we haven't seen yet. So for me, I'm looking at the wide receiver free agents. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of great ones. But a Zay Jones, a Tyler Boyd, won't be super expensive and can come in and have an experienced pass catcher. The Cardinals don't have a bona fide experienced pass catcher in the wide receiver room right now. You want to talk about Chris Moore and Zach Pascal? I'm seeing a lot of that on Twitter. Let's break down the numbers here quickly. Chris Moore, 7 seasons in the NFL, 1,700 career receiving yards total. Never more than 50 receptions in a season, never more than 550 yards receiving in a season. Zach Pascal, more of a popular name. He had a couple years in Indy where he caught some touchdowns, things like that. 2,057 receiving yards in 6 seasons. Never more than 50 receptions, never more than 650 yards receiving. These guys, and Zach Pascal was, I think, had less than 50 yards receiving last year for the Cardinals. So while it's not a need to have per se, it's a nice to have plus. If they don't sign another wide receiver, they're going to be good. They'll be okay/good with the ceiling that could absolutely get shattered if Marvin Harrison Jr. comes in and produces from day one. He's a rookie. He's going to garner CB1 attention. Michael Wilson missed a lot of last year with injury. Greg Dortch has never really been put in the spotlight to actually produce. A lot of the stuff he's caught has been garbage time. And that's not to say it won't translate. That's not to say Michael Wilson won't take a step up this year. That's not to say Marvin Harrison Jr. won't have that huge 0-1 leap his rookie year pretty much right away. I'm not saying that won't happen. What I'm saying is, if it doesn't, they need more. One guy. And I'm saying that they need somebody on the depth chart that is ahead of Chris Moore and Zach Pascal, even if the run game is good. This is the job for the wide receiver, the pass catchers this year. Make James Conner's job easier. James Conner had a very hard job last year. It was an anemic pass offense for the majority of the season. And he got it done. Drew Petzing, the offensive line, the run blocking was great. And James Conner got it done. Again, stacked boxes. The wide receiver room this year needs to be good enough to have lighter boxes for James Conner, which will balance out the entire offense, which will keep opposing defenses guessing, which will make Kyler Murray's job so much easier to do what he does. By adding another wide receiver, that becomes possible. Somebody who's had more experience than the 3,700 total yards in 13 total seasons receiving that Zach Pascal and Chris Moore have. It's not going to be good enough. There's still some good names out there. The Cardinals need to jump now before it's too late. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner _. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Cardinals declined Zaven Collins' 5th-year option. What a surprise. What does it mean? I'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by eBay Motors. We'll get there. There it is. eBay Motors, man, passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, viewed from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. They mentioned last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event, and get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Alex Nancy, Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today bring you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Cardinals need to sign another wide receiver, and I don't think it's dire. If they don't, it's fine. But having a safety net more than Zach Pascal and Chris Moore, I think would be beneficial for the team. One thing that is beneficial for the Arizona Cardinals is that Steve Keim is no longer the GM. The Arizona Cardinals, once again, did not pick up the fifth-year option of a first-round pick made by Steve Keim. So there's that. I kind of feel bad for Zaven Collins, as I felt bad for all the other guys too, because Zaven Collins was moved to a position that wasn't a natural position. He played a little of it at Tulsa, but he's not an inside linebacker. He looked lost right away. Same thing with Isaiah Simmons, and it's unfortunate that we had to witness, yet another first-round pick not pan out. And we'll see this year. We'll see if he plays with reckless abandon. I mean, Steve Keim didn't pick up Hassan Reddick's fifth-year option, and he balled out his fifth year, and then the rest is history. Took a one-year deal with Carolina, had over 10 sacks, and then got paid all the cheese in Philly. And now with the Jets, got another contract extension. It means something, okay? I haven't dedicated more than a couple minutes in passing to something like this. It means that the end is almost near. Like, it's here, but it's not officially here yet. The days where we reference Steve Keim is almost done. And for those that, have reached out, whether happy or otherwise, when I do mention Steve Keim still, even though, this is his second year removed from the team. Why are you still talking about the past? Why are you still talking about him? Why are you still talking about him? Because he's still part of the story. He was the reason, among other things, the Cardinals were there last year with Monty Osborne having to knock everything down. He was the reason. his constant ineptitude and needing to show that he was the smartest person in the room kept the Cardinals stagnant, more or less, for a decade. Sure, they had a couple good years. Sure, Carson Palmer came in and resurrected his career. Absolutely. But Steve Keim's inability to do his job properly made it very difficult for the Cardinals to move forward, grow, and progress. So the end is almost near because we don't have to worry about first-round picks from Steve Keim anymore. We don't have to worry about drafting a position that is not of need. We don't have to worry witnessing the Arizona Cardinals do that. And we don't have to, me existentially, and you, everydayers, hearing out of my big dumb face, talking about Steve Keim because he's still relevant. That's almost gone. That's almost gone. And I think as we start the actual season in 2024, it will be a butt of jokes and not a focal point for conversation. And that feels pretty good. They've been swimming an uphill battle against their own. Steve Keim and Michael Bidwell enabling him. And now it's gone. But the remnants are still there. The aftershocks are still there. So when you see the news that the Cardinals declined Zaven Collins' fifth-year option, that doesn't mean that they're 100% not going to bring him back. Doesn't mean that. It means that he needs to show that he's worth a second contract. And by a long shot, more than not, he hasn't. And he hasn't been put in the best situation to succeed. He got moved to the outside last year. We'll see if second year, with more reps, with Kyler Murray, with a better defense, that he'll be able to shine. We just haven't seen really. I mean, he had a couple turnovers forced. I think he had a tipped interception last year, a couple forced fumbles in a 2 or 3 game stretch. But we didn't talk a lot about Zaven Collins last year. And when you witness that from a first round pick, again, it's just disheartening. So, again, while this isn't really Zaven Collins' fault initially, where you get drafted and how you get coached and what position you're put in is incredibly important. A lot of times. It's about, otherwise, you've got superstars and it doesn't matter where they are, they'll produce. But guys in the middle, the Cardinals failed Zaven Collins. And we need to see if a second year under Jonathan Gannon can resurrect Zaven Collins' career as an Arizona Cardinal. Time will tell. But the good news is we're not going to have to talk about Steve Keim much longer. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Drew Petzing spoke to the media yesterday. What did he say? Anything of note? Let's discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. All right, we got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much fun stuff in this game, man. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton, including their own unique mini games, like digging for treasure on a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent. Frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Thanks for hanging out. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. This is just going to, every day we're getting closer to the greatness that will be the 2024 season. One way or the other, we're going to find out so many things. We're going to find out so many things about the present and the future of this team. There's so many. For those that have listened for a while, at the beginning of last season and through the summer also, I discussed a lot that it's going to be a lot of character pieces. Like, oh, Garrett Williams, did he play better last week did he play better this week than he did last week? What are some takeaways that are positive? BJ Ojulari, Michael Wilson, Paris Johnson Jr., things like that. And it was fascinating and it was fun because it was brand new. It was different. It wasn't a bunch of veterans get thrown together and hoping that you can mesh as a team. And this is going to be that exponentially more exciting and interesting with more storylines, with more nuance, with more ramifications, with more expectations. Plus with the healthy Kyler Murray. So after the draft, little lull here. Free agency, there'll be rumbling. I'm sure there'll be a second wave here in the next week or two. Drew Petzing talked to the media yesterday, and he said a couple interesting things. One, he just praised Marvin Harrison Jr. He's like, he's going to fit in this offense, and it's going to be good. It was paraphrasing. Like, imagine being Drew Petzing and having Marvin Harrison Jr. as a weapon. Imagine that. From last year, no Kyler Murray. Not a great receiving core. Hollywood Brown wasn't very good. Michael Wilson was okay when he played. Greg Dortch was okay. Trey McBride was good. But it was James Conner. It was a James Conner show. Now he's got a fully healthy Kyler Murray. He's got Marvin Harrison Jr. Addition by subtraction with Hollywood Brown gone. Trey Benson at running back. And he spoke the praises of Trey Benson also. About his speed, about his burst, about his his ability to run between the tackles and outside. Like, Drew Petzing is going to be a kid in the candy store in 2024. Now you got to put it together. You have to have the right game plan. Now the other interesting thing that he mentioned, which is, a question going into training camp. The Cardinals don't have very many questions. Definitely not as many as they had last year. And, a couple years before, there was a lot more questions than answered because we didn't know what the hell was going on when we were watching this team. We didn't know. I had no idea. I do a daily podcast, and I have for years. I worked in sports radio for 12 years in Phoenix. I had no idea what the hell was going on the last couple of years. But last year, Drew Petzing had a game plan. And imagine infusing that game plan that worked a lot better than people thought with more talent. Also, more talent on the offensive line. So he was asked about what the offensive line is going to look like. And he kept it very open. He's like, listen, we're going to go into camp and we'll see what's up. Because Jonah Williams can play both left tackle and right tackle, and Paris Johnson Jr. was a traditional left tackle, moved to right tackle last year. So this is kind of like a wait and see scenario. But it's interesting because unlike the past, the Cardinals have options, good options, not questions, options. There's very, very different with the Cardinals saying, we don't know where to put this person. And we have a couple different options we can place players in an effort to, magnify our talent. It's very different. It's a far cry from, Isaiah Simmons is working out with the DBs because inside linebacker didn't work. Zaven Collins is working out with a couple different positions. It's just like, what? It's like you're guessing. And what the Cardinals have now is options. They can play Jonah Williams on the left side. They can play Jonah Williams on the right side. They've got Kelvin Beachum as a swing tackle. They've got the rookies. They've got depth. So if one doesn't work, you've got an option that is equally as good, if not better, with another scrambling of the players on the offensive line. And I harp on this a lot, and I go back and forth on this a lot. Not back and forth. I say this a lot is these elementary things seems like, well, obviously, that's not something to be excited about. That's not something to, gloat about. That's not something to pat on the back about. For most teams, it's not. But in a hard reset, rebuild, it is. How you do the little things is how you do everything. How you do the little things is how you do everything. Week 1, Tennessee 2021. Every day I go back to this a lot. The Cardinals won by 100 in Tennessee on the road. Nothing had changed. Cliff Kingsbury's first offensive possession, short field. Chandler Jones, strip sack. Penalty, timeout, incompletion, field goal. Nothing changed. And it was obvious. I don't know why everybody didn't see it, but I did. That's why you know that this is different. The little things that are being done are how the big things are being done. And it seems cliche and a generality, but it's not. So going into camp with options is this regime's version of the last regime's going into training camp guessing. That's what's pivoted the Cardinals from uncertainty and dysfunctionality to strength, stability, and a future brighter than we have ever seen with this organization. And I don't think that's an overstatement. How bad this organization's been. That's why what Drew Petzing said was interesting. It wasn't impactful in a sense that, we got club secrets or something like that. It just showed that these pieces that are going to be added through the draft, or if they continue to be active in free agency, are going to complement the structure already in place and not be forced to become the structure because there is no solid stencil in place for a game plan on both sides of the ball to win. Trey Benson will fit in nicely. Marvin Harrison Jr. will fit in nicely. We'll see what happens in training camp. We'll see who the better left tackle is and who the better right tackle is. And, sure, it'll work itself out organically. And that's great. They've got options. They don't have to know everything right now. There's a lot of new pieces. And that's what makes me most excited for the new season is this is truly showing the difference between the old regime and the new regime. It's showing the difference. Calculated, methodical, game plan. Blindfolded, throwing a dart at a wall, hoping to call the right play and hoping to put the players in the right spot. It is a stark difference. And it's pretty badass. Alex Lanty, Locked On Cardinals. Tomorrow, Damian Parson, who joined me right before the draft, will join me again tomorrow post-draft to give his thoughts on the players, give a deep dive on the Cardinals picks, give you a little bit more introspection. You want to stick around for that tomorrow. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.